Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon. I'm the Honorary Professor, Dr. Mei Li Inouye, Deputy Dean of Research, Faculty of Education. Our respected speakers, Prof. Dr. Rohaida, Saat, Honorary Professor, Faculty of Education, University Malaya, Dr. Mei Li Inouye, Assistant Professor of Chinese at Saat College, Danville, Kentucky, in the USA, and all honored guests here today and those online. Before we proceed the agenda today, let us first recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Amin, amin, ya Rabbal Alamin. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we now welcome the Deputy Dean of Research for the Faculty of Education, Mr. Professor Dr. Rohaida to give the opening remarks.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and also good afternoon. I would like to welcome. We have our honorary guest here, that is our honorary professor and also our former dean. So that is Professor Dr. Rohaida Saat, and we are very honored to have her here because she's very popular, and I think many of you are here just because of her. And of course, we have our Dr. Mei Li Inouye, Assistant Professor of Chinese, Center College, Danville, Kentucky, USA. So we are very honored to have her here with us, and she just reached from US, and also this is her first trip to and also she will be coming again in January with 28 undergraduate students to our faculty. So we are very honored to have these two special guests who are willing to share with you, that is for the research workshop, identifying and developing research topics. And I think we have only limited 6 here because we have many others online. So I would like to also convey my welcome, and also this is the research series topic, so that we have more research series, so that knowledge sharing, and also you can benefit. And I think this is particularly addressed to PhD students, especially in semester 1, semester 2, who are like thinking, what is the research topic that I would like to explore? So what is it? So this also helps to reduce you from changing topics. You know, a lot of our students, they are very fond of changing topics. One semester, work, everything, then go to the second semester, change, start over. So that is wasting actually our time. So you have to work smart, plan accordingly. So we have our two experts here who are going to share you the tips and strategies to develop the right research topics. With that, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, everyone, for a very warm welcome. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to invite Dr. Mei Li Inouye, Assistant Professor of Chinese at Center College, Danville, Kentucky, USA, to share her expertise and valuable experience on identifying research topics.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you all today. I didn't plan on giving a research talk in the last 2 weeks, so I'm actually delighted to be here. I brought travel wear for a trip that I'm developing. I'm actually here because I'm bringing students here in January next year, and I'm developing a course called Ceramics, Cuisine, and Colonialism. We'll change the colonialism to cultural contact, but it's about intercultural exchange in Malaysia, right? It's a course on intercultural exchange, and I think Malaysia is the perfect place to do that course. So that said, that topic, is developing a course is almost like developing a research program, a research project. You don't really know what you're getting into until you start doing it. So I feel that I'm not necessarily the ideal person to lead you because I have experienced the process of changing my research topic multiple times. So I feel for you. Sorry. So I hope that I do. I'm not so far away from where you are now. I graduated from Stanford University in 2019. I spent 7 years there, and let's see, I got on the job market in 2018, and was able to land a job in 2020. So during COVID, I was able to find a job as an assistant professor. And so the time between getting on the job market and going to my new job, and I had about 6 months to finish my dissertation. That's very, and so I don't feel that I'm very far away from where you are now. So just by raise of hands, how many of you are first year dissertation or PhD students? Second? Fourth? Fifth? Okay, I know that's like a dangerous question to ask. People always never ask someone how long they've been in their program, right? I spent about 7 years in mine, so you're a good company. 7 to 11 is the norm. Don't you're doing that till 5, right? But so today, what I hope to get out of this, let's see, how can I control this? Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. So before we get going, so I'll introduce myself briefly. My name is Mei Li Inouye. Mei Li is Chinese, Inouye is Japanese. I grew up in the United States. I'm about 4th generation Japanese, 3rd generation Chinese. And I grew up in Utah. I don't know if you know Utah, right? It's kind of in the Intermountain West. And I did my education in Virginia, like Washington, D.C. and Virginia, and also in California, and now I'm in Kentucky. Now, how many of you know Kentucky? Kentucky Fried Chicken, I know you know. And that is the birthplace, it really is. Kentucky is the birthplace of fried chicken. Colonel Sanders was from Corbin, Kentucky. Now, you'll probably also know Abraham Lincoln, correct? Abraham Lincoln was born in Kentucky. This is an image, there's a statue there in front of Centre College. That is where I teach now. It's a small liberal arts college for undergraduate students, right? And Abraham Lincoln, a big statue of Abraham Lincoln in front of our library. He was not born in Danville where I teach, but he had a good friend who was one of the founders of the college. And so we have a statue of him. Now, if you're ever wondering how to locate Kentucky on a map, we have these states. We have a hat, a chef's hat. You see that? We have a chef's hat here. We have a face, this is Kentucky right here. It's the fried chicken line. Okay, so you'll never forget where Kentucky is on a map. Okay, so that's not necessarily why we're here to learn where Kentucky is today. However, we are here to talk about research, right? I think the agenda today is to think about what is the irony of research, and to introduce you to an approach that I learned while at Stanford. It's called a self-centered research approach. This is not about being egotistical per se, but it's about coming to know yourself and what really makes you tick. Because it's really hard when you're selecting a research topic and you're thinking about pleasing your dean or pleasing your professor or your advising committee or pleasing the world, right? What's the world going to want to read? When you think about those external judges, it becomes very, 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 very difficult to make a topic. So the approach that I'm going to introduce you today is this approach called self-centered research, and I'll introduce you to Thomas Mulaney and Mr. Lee, who have developed this approach. And then I'll introduce you to some methods, research as a practice, an ethic, and a state of mind. What does that mean? We'll get to it. I'll use myself as a guinea pig in a case study. And you can see all my failures as a researcher, as well as some successes. Okay? And lastly, I'll give you some tips on how to jumpstart your research. And as we go along today, if something pops into your mind as I'm speaking, write it down. Okay? What you're trying to create is a trail of self-evidence. The self-evidence is a path back to yourself. So if some random tangential thought appears in your mind, as we discuss A, B, or C, write it down. I have a couple checks, learning checks that I'll be doing with you along the way. So, choosing a dissertation topic. So the majority in this room, of you in this room, have chosen a dissertation topic. Yes? Okay. The process of getting to the dissertation topic, tell me, what was that process like?
It was fun.
Fun? Why was it fun?
For me, it was kind of tricky because, like Professor Rohaida mentioned before, every year there's always changing here and then changing here. So, to my experience, I believe I changed my research topic for about 8 to 9 times.
Yes. 8 to 9 times, fun for you. Right. So that's, I like that mindset is healthy, right? It was fun, it was an exploration.
Yeah.
What is it that I really want to write about? What do I want to spend 5 years writing? And it's actually not 5 years, it's like 10, right? Hopefully you don't produce your book in 10 years, but that's pretty normal, right? At least in the States. So choosing a dissertation topic is not easy, right? And it goes through many iterations, right? So when I had to write my dissertation prospectus, I was asked to, what was my topic? What was my what were my questions? What was the actual problem that I was trying to encounter? And who were the people that I was trying to talk to? Who were my interlocutors? What was the state of the field, right? And what sources was I going to use? What methods was I going to use? And why was it important? Now, if you ask someone that at the beginning of their program, these questions are nearly impossible to answer, right? So that's the irony of research. The most challenging part of research is the part before you begin, when you don't know what questions you want to solve. Now, I'm going to introduce you to this book that I wish I had read before I had started my research process. Thomas Mullany is a historian at Stanford. I took a class with him. He's a historian of Chinese studies. He works on a computer with a typewriter. Before that, it was ethnic minority groups in China, right? But Thomas Mullany has become kind of like an advocate for first generation college students, filling in the gaps, telling them what they don't know, right? So he wrote this book, and when I took it, this book came out this year, and so it wasn't around when I was writing my dissertation, but I did consult with Tom on multiple occasions about how to do archival research. I am a literary scholar by training, I am not a historian. I didn't know how to conduct archival research. So I went to historians and asked, how do I do this? Who do I call? What are the first steps of even contacting an archive? Or how do I track this information, right? So Thomas Mullany gave me a lot of information then. And then later, when he was workshopping this book, I was able to sit in that course. So first tip is, if you get nothing else out of this workshop today, at least maybe you can pick up a Kindle version on Kindle, say $12 US. You can get a version of this book, and I think it's very, very, very helpful. So I've been thinking about what's most useful to give you today, and I've kind of taken my experience and aligned it with some pieces of Tom's book, Christopher Reed's book, and I hope it's helpful. So research, the irony of research is, the research process doesn't begin after you figure out your core questions. The research process begins before you know what you're even researching. Okay, so that doesn't make it any easier, of course, does it? But so Thomas Mullany presents this approach called self-centered research. And what this is, take this out. Okay, this will be easier for me. So what this means is, when faced with the question of where to begin our research, right, we too often look outside of ourselves. We're seeking for that external validation. We let others set our agenda, but research begins with the research identifying the problem that they carry inside of them and figuring out what to do with it. So how do you begin the research process? You need to look inward. And this feels like some self-help kind of guru project, right? But this is really important. So if I were to ask you, what are your passions? Could you tell me? What's your passion? Anyone?
My passion is to inspire others.
Inspire others.
Yes.
Okay, not a research topic. Or yes, it could be, right? So I'm playing around here. Yeah, it's your passion is to inspire others. Wonderful. Any other passions? Education, right? That's why you're here. Yeah. Any others? If I were asked this question, I would say, I don't know. It's been so long since I've had any passion, right? I've been in the library, I've been working, I don't even know what my passions are anymore. And can you differentiate your passions from someone else's passions? So I'm working at Stanford in my department, like, why do my passions all of a sudden look like my advisor's passions? Right? Sometimes we pretend to have passions that aren't actually ours. And learning how to differentiate between those two is very tricky. So that's the first step. And it's kind of an ongoing step, actually. So this self-centered research practice, okay, so for me, right, when I was in the beginning stages, and I apologize, I think I have some typos in here, but we'll go with it. When I was taking a course, so when you scan the course catalog, this is the way to test your passion. Tom Slaney calls it an EKG meter, right? Like when your heart goes up and something interests you. So if you were to like open up the course catalog at UVM and go in beyond the Department of Education, just kind of scan those courses, does your heart your heart rate get higher? Does your interest, does something make you feel something as you read a certain course, right? And it might not be a course in the department that you're in, right? So when I was taking, in my second year of courses, I was taking a class called on like global icons, and I was really interested in this class. I didn't really know much about visual culture, right? I was studying novels and literature, and the image I thought was really interesting. It seemed like another way of communicating. It seemed like just another form of doing the things that I was interested in. So I took this class from the visiting professor, from the University of Heidelberg. And she was an ethnomusicologist who actually got into visual culture as well. And so I took this course and it was about global icons. How do you construct a global icon? What are the conditions by which a global icon comes into being? And as we were talking about these things, my meter, my EKG meter, kept popping up every time we talked about gender and icons. It seemed that the only icons we were examining were men, were male icons. So I thought, okay, I think my EKG meter is telling me that I'm interested in gender, a little bit. So this, and the conditions by which a woman can come into power, right? So I thought, okay, I have to write a paper. This is not my field. I'm going to write about a paper about the only female icon in modern Chinese history that could possibly constitute a global icon. And that was Jiang Qing or Madame Mao, right? Chairman Mao's wife. Jiang Qing was an actress in the 1920s and then was visible all throughout the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And yet, right, when I was doing the research, there were a couple biographies, only two, about this woman. The most powerful and the most visible woman in the history of modern China. There were only two English language, there weren't Chinese, by the way, but only two works about her. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting. And another phenomenon that I encountered was in representations of Jiang Qing in the West and globally, in Brazil, in Australia, in Japan, she was figured as kind of what I call a dragon lady. So kind of like an East Asian stereotype, right? Where women are depicted as strong and that were a type of woman is protected as strong and maybe deceitful and maybe like, you could say kind of manipulative and seductive, right? But powerful. And then in China, sorry, this slide's weird, depictions of Jiang Qing after her trial, after Mao died in after 1976, she was depicted in these ways, caricatured. So I came to call her like, this is like the kingdom crasher, with the empress who spent all the money in the coffers and Margot Bobo kept his right? Like, so it's this kind of figure, right? These were gender discourses that I thought were interesting. Why is this woman only represented in these two ways? Is that all she was, right? Now, So my initial dissertation questions were, how has Jiangqing been represented over time and by what parties? And how do these representations reveal race continuities, rearrangements of gender discourses and political periods? I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was like, I think this has something to do with gender, right? And I think it has something to do with print media. And everyone I spoke to, some of them were like, oh, cool project, this has never been done, do it. And others were like, Jiangqing, don't do that. Right? And why would you write just study a dissertation on just one woman? Bad idea. Okay, so I had a lot of different feedback. But my hunch was it's not just about this woman. It seems that it's about something else, but I don't know what it is. Okay? So the challenges for me then, as I was writing my dissertation perspectives, kind of making things up along the way, right? Just and applying for a lot of grants because I was running out of money. Right? So the challenges were scale and scope. I thought, oh, hopefully this is something I can do online, just from the States. And then, you know, my mentor said, no, this requires extensive archival research. I don't know how to do that. I am a literary scholar. I literally sit in a chair and read books, you know. So it meant that I had to figure out new methods, right? So scale and scope, I had to go abroad. I had to go to the source and see what I could dig up. This person, even though a lot of scholars who are experts in the field said you'll find nothing. Choose taboo, you won't find anything. Okay? Sources, again, it's the issue of sources, taboo topic, archives, you're not going to find anything. Right? That's what I was told. And form, I don't know what this is for, but I didn't know what form it was going to take. Was it going to be a literary study? Was it going to be about visual culture? Was it going to be about Jiangqing's films? I didn't know. And then I didn't know how to even talk about what field it was in. It didn't seem, maybe it was gender studies, but it was also performance studies, it was also film studies, it was print media, right? It was a lot of things. So it was just an interest, it was a hunch. Because it seemed to me, we didn't have very much scholarship on this woman, right? And that was a little surprising. And number two, this woman seemed to have a lot to do with the dynamics, the social and political dynamics of the 1960s, even though everyone said, no, she was just, just a puppet, right? A house puppet. So self-centered research is kind of going, so the practice is starting with what you have, looking at the courses you've taken, looking at the courses that have flagged your interest, looking at the papers you've written. What are the papers that really kind of draw you out? Papers that seem easier to write, right? Readings, resources that were more fun to read. Okay, start there, start with the place. And it helps when a professor, I think for me, it was really helpful when a professor said, this has potential. And I know Tom Mulaney would say, you need to decide for yourself. You don't need to please an external judge, but it was really helpful for me to have an external judge say. Something like that. Sources, again, all my sources were potentially in China, and and kind of behind closed archive vaults, right? And so I didn't know, so there's lots of limitations, and then family, I had my daughter right here when I was writing my dissertation prospectus. So that was hard. And then 2 years later, imagine how much, I don't know why it took 2 years, but I had another child, right? So baby on the way. So when I went to do my preliminary research in China, I had a child, and I was like 7, 8 months pregnant. And I was getting on these subway cars, like, they were just jam-packed, ready to travel like an hour across the city to get to learn archives. There were a lot of limitations. So, tip, right? It might be too late for some of you now. It's never too late, it's never too late. But in your early years, and you can be a mentor to those who come along, right? Just always talk to the people a year ahead of you or a couple years out, because they know so much more than you do, right? In terms of getting funding. This is the game, funding. I started applying to research grants pretty much in year 2 and 3 out of desperation, right? If I don't have money, I can't finish, and I have this kid, and then this other kid on the way. So I applied to a lot of grants, and as you apply for research grants, you refine those questions, and you figure out what it is that you're really interested in. And even if you're on the wrong project, you still develop the skill of being able to answer those questions, right? So it just facilitates, it's speedier, you just want to do it more quickly. And so I think this slide got me disoriented, but what was helpful for me was this preliminary research trip to check out the archives. Could I find information? And I realized I couldn't, like a lot of things were off limits. But I also realized that a lot of things had slipped through the cracks. There were mentions of her in other documents, in other, like things like the botanical parks, like her name would come up, or textile factory messages, right? These things that you would never think of, she was there. And it was just, I had to think outside the categories, outside the boxes. And so I spent a lot of time in libraries, and talking to people. I'll explain that a little bit later. But start writing your research grants now, because they help you shape that. So for one, I got this Council on Library and Information Research fellowship. It was a year-long faculty fellowship. It's called the Clear Knowledge International Fellowship. And I was really surprised, really surprised to get it. But it gave me a year to do archival research in China, right? And then I combined it with all these other grants because it wasn't enough, right? I was able to gather other things. So always have your eye out, even like a $2,000 grant or a $1,000 or $500 grant, it all adds up, right? But you just kind of have to be on your toes. But once you do one, it's easier to do others. Personal strengths and supports. I came from a Japanese American, Chinese American family. We had been, imprisoned right during the Japanese internment camps, and my family had this ethic of like survival, right? So I knew this was my strength. I could survive pretty much anything. Like being pregnant on a train, I could do this thing, right? So that was my personal strength. I had the mental toughness to do it. I also had a husband, this guy, and he was willing to take time off from his career to look after my children, who eventually became this big. He went from a baby to this by the end of my research. Right? This is them at Stanford hanging out. But he was willing to take care of the kids while I pursued my research. Now, not everyone has this, right? And so, but not everyone has children too. So again, looking at your limitations and abilities and figuring out a project that you can do and support it. So then I had a research support committee and a therapist. So I don't know what UM has, but mental health is really important. And even if you don't have this, you have these people. Okay? And it's not always talking to your dissertation advisor that helps you figure out your project, right? It's talking to a number of friends. So every time you have a new project, don't run it by your advisor first, maybe. Work it out before you, and then make an educated decision, right? But again, so mental health check, this is for you now. What kind of challenges do you face in your research right now? Think about it. Okay. And they can be a number of things. So sometimes you have to adjust your research trajectory based on these challenges. And then what kind of strengths do you have? Let's see, moving forward, I think I have what? Do I have like 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, okay. So the third thing, right, self-centered research is a state of mind. And this means it's one that keeps it, like that affirms the value of your ideas, assumptions, and concerns, right? And it also presumes that the faster you figure out your concerns and motivations, the faster and better. The better and faster you'll discover a research problem that matters. Okay, so I'm going to talk about like so with this, for me, okay, it was important to maintain this openness, this kind of a mindset, right? And I think your education, so I'm sure you talk about Carol, like growth mindset, or maybe you don't, but in the field of education, right, this idea of growth mindset is important. As researchers, keeping in mind that when you encounter an obstacle, the obstacle might be the very key to like opening up your research, right? You can't surpass that obstacle. You actually have to make a diversion. You have to move. Your path changes, right? So seeing obstacles as opportunities is, I think, really helpful. And I'll just give you 2 examples. I'll come back to that slide. So when I was working on geology, I went to the archives, and I couldn't look up so many things, right? So I went to the libraries instead. Plus, I didn't really know what keywords or search terms I was supposed to use, right? It became very clear to me that if I were to find anything on her, it would have to be through a different search term. So your keywords are really, really important to developing your topic and your questions, right? As you, I'll come back to this slide, okay? So if you're stuck on your topic, you don't know what to do, or if you're going to come up in your research, go back to the sources. Go to primary sources, go to secondary sources. But primarily primary sources, and remember that EKG meter, like as you read, just your heart can fluctuate. Do you find something interesting? Do you find a certain keyword? You can drop in another search that produces something else, right? It's the sources that ground you. I was really nervous and anxious making up this topic or designing this dissertation perspective because I haven't seen any of the sources. But once I got into the sources, the game changed immediately. Like I felt so much more confident. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I was onto something, right? So I think when I tell go back to your sources, find more sources. So find the sources that are useful to your research project. And as you use the sources to refine your questions. So as you keep looking for, you can find new keywords, you find new people, you find new relationships, right? And your questions start to become more detailed. Have you ever written a question that's like so general that nobody knows what you're talking about? I want to work on gender and modern China. That's like a topic, okay? The topics are traps, okay? Topics are traps. I want to work on education and social justice. That's not a research project, okay? That's a trap, because a topic actually keeps you from your questions. And questions are very specific and detail-oriented, but you don't know those specifics, I think, from my experience, until you get into the sources, right? You don't even know what the words are to define that, right? So, for me, I didn't even know what my keywords were. I was just searching geology, not that just long or former names, right? But really what I found to be the case was I went to over 40 libraries and archives in China. So this is pretty running off the archives, okay? And what I realized, I was kind of going about it wrong. This wasn't a story about geology. This was a story about performance in modern drama theater reforms. And these modern drama theater reforms were about democratic collectivity. They were about modernization, using the rigid word instead of oral transmission. They were about something else, something that I hadn't even thought about, right? It wasn't a story about geology, right? And all of her So I went to all these libraries and archives, started finding keywords, people, terms, names of theater performance companies, right, these kinds of things, films. And I paired that because the archives were hard with oral interviews. Now again, literary scholar, not a historian, right? I had to learn how to do these oral history interviews. So I talked to a lot of people. I have friends in political science who gave me a connection here, a connection there, and then I learned to talk to them, right? So I think this was probably my key method, right, when I was doing my research. My friend coined this term, friendship as method, right? We don't think about that as a methodology, but it's all about kind of, when you figure out your topic, it's about connecting the dots. One thing that you can do that I think that Tom mentions in the book is, as you write down all the questions you have about any given topic or the things that kind of stimulate you, if you step back and look at, sorry, this is the way. If you step back and look at those dots, you might see a picture emerging. He draws a picture of a whale. So instead of looking at one dot and thinking, what is this? Step back and see how all the dots connect, right? There's something, all your random interests, Walter Benjamin, visual culture, Judy Garland, there's something shared among all those dots. And that's your problem. It's a good thing to have a problem, right? So going from a topic to questions to having an actual problem. So, and I couldn't figure that out without doing a lot of this. Okay, so talking to people. Everywhere I went in China, I would seek out an archive, I would seek out a library, and I would seek out people, right? And so once you get started, once you know one person, I was lucky to be introduced to a senior party historian when I was there. She seemed to know a lot of people, right? But once they know you and trust you, then they'll share their contacts with you, right? And then it became this friendship as method, right? And it was multiple visits, it wasn't one visit. You can't just do one interview, check the box, you're done. I went back to China for 3 or 4 or 5 times, right? And every time I'd go back and see the same people, right? These are some of the figures, you know, her secretary, her student, a film director that she was having an affair with, a historian, a composer, an author, you know, like all these figures. I took off their names to protect them. I'm sorry. But these figures were telling me really interesting stories that I couldn't find in others, right? And suddenly something bigger started to take shape. And then my research collected, I had friends at the University of Hong Kong, and they would introduce me to people, or, you know, wherever you go, try to make a contact. I randomly made this contact, right? But wherever you go, make a contact, make some friends, and they will inevitably help you rethink the project. Okay, so mapping out communities. So in the end, this is the dissertation version. I figured out that I was doing a culture studies project. That was kind of my genre. It wasn't literary scholarship anymore, it was culture studies, and I'm like, oh no, now I've got to read all the works about that, right? And I was writing a chapter on visual culture on film and print media and memory. I was writing a chapter on modern spoken drama, and I was writing a chapter on, you know, like gender, right? I'm like, oh, how do I even do this? How do I put these all together? And I couldn't at the time figure out how to do it because I had this job and I had to write my dissertation, so I just wrote those chapters up. Good enough. Right, I'm done with my advisor, let's say, I'm done dissertation is a good dissertation. So it's not, you don't have to have the perfect project, you just have to have a project. And we'll teach you things along the way, and you just need to write a dissertation. And then you can move on to the next thing, right? So now, I realized at the end, I had 2 projects. And one was about Jiangqing and as an object, and one was about Jiangqing as a subject. But it really was how those 2 intertwined. You know, when you look at Jiangqing and how she was represented over time, you know, why did this narrative of Jiangqing as this femme fatale who traded sex for power? Why did it stick? It's still the dominant narrative of Jiangqing. It's been 60 years, and that's the narrative. Interesting, right? And how did that actually compare to what she actually did as a cultural performer? One thing I found in the archive, in newspaper clippings, was the fact that she only performed the role of a revolutionary. She never performed the role of a femme fatale. It was only a revolutionary, right? So I'm like, okay, what's going on? What's the disconnect between these two things? And why is for whoever I talk to, there seems to be a structure of feeling, and this sentiment about her. And it was scholars, scholars who worked on gender, scholars who worked on performance, they all like had this kind of feeling about her that was kind of negative, and I'm like, why? Why is that? And so I have a theory later that will be in my book about how the structure of feeling was created, but it has a lot to do with the performance world in which she performed. And the ways in which you could, using contemporary terms like plagiarized, right, from her colleagues while persecuting them, right? And then after she went down, their ideas were stuck in these model operas, these works, and they couldn't extract their own work anymore, right? Maybe it's not the best theory, and I thought about advising people, but a bigger picture of which it's really not about her, right? So this is what you want. Eventually, you want to get to a place where you have a contribution, right? And my contribution is thinking about the relationship between gender and power, thinking about the relationship between performance and revolution, and thinking about memory. Okay? So the end goal of the self-recentric research process is just like conventional research processes, one in which the researcher produces empirical, grounded, theoretically informed, compelling scholarship about some aspect of the world around us, and does so in a way that changes how other people think. Okay? But as for a takeaway, right, I think the most valuable things that I learned, and I think that I think will be useful to you, is get to know what you care about, right? Irrespective of what you feel like the world tells you to care about. I know that there's a fear in academic circles of getting scooped. Do you know that term? Right? Like having your idea taken by someone else, or not getting your idea, your paper out like first. I tell my students too, diversity is that we are all different, and there's no way that what goes through my brain will come out the same way as it does through your brain, right? So I think just kind of set those fears aside, because that was a big fear of mine. I can't share this resource, someone would contact me, like, I can't share this resource because what if they use it and their paper gets out before mine, right? These kind of fears are really dangerous, and again, friendship is method, right? When we are generous with our scholarship, people are also generous with us as well. So get to know yourself, get to know what matters to you, irrespective of these weird fears that we have, okay? Learn to know the difference between productive uncertainty and productive uncertainty, right? Certain questions will just kind of don't go very far. And actually, that book, How to Research, has an exercise to differentiate between that, right? So I recommend that you read one of the first 2 chapters. And then learn how to generate questions that are of concern to you. I have this thing with my students on my undergrads where we just practice writing questions. So I think this is the hardest part of research, just writing good questions. And so I take them through this exercise, I call it a cultural report, where they pick a phenomenon, right, like in relation to China, and then they read about it, present about it, and at the end, all they have to do is come up with one question. How does X, what is the relationship between X and Y? It's as simple as that. And I think this is a good exercise because, one, they have to tune into what their interests are, and 2, they have to learn to articulate a question that is not biased, like, how did X influence Y? You're assuming that X influenced Y, right? So learning how to pose things in neutral terms. Oftentimes the easiest thing is, what is the relationship between X and Y, right? But learning how to generate questions, I think, is the most important thing. So again, topic land is dangerous, okay? Try to move as quickly as you can from topic land to questions, really concrete questions, detailed questions. And the more questions you have, just write them all down, then step back and see if you can see a shape taking place. And if you can't see it, then you go to your network. Well, actually, this should be done simultaneously. You go to your network, professors in different fields, and ask, when I talk about this, what comes to mind? What do you see? They might see what you can't see because they've been in the field for years, right? Or do you have any recommendations on, something I might read, or asking a lot of questions, or, friends, what do you see when I say these things? So that will generate a problem. Okay, so I think I'm out of time, which is fine. But I'm going to leave you with this, right? So what sparks your interest now? And how can you use your interest to generate specific questions? So if you were to have 10 minutes tonight, scroll, drop in a keyword, scroll through your searches, see what interests you, write it down. And then try to take those interests and turn them into questions, right? And then, okay, I'm just repeating myself. Do those questions create a dot-to-dot, a bigger picture? And if so, might that be a problem, a good problem, right? And then take that problem and talk to as many people as you can to see if it really is a problem. And by problem, I mean something that you can explore and examine. Okay, so that's it for me. This is the table of contents for Tom's book if you're interested. You can look at it later. But any questions, or I can turn the time over to our esteemed professor, and then we can talk later. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mei Li, for the very insightful session. Now, we would like to welcome our second speaker, Professor Dr. Rohaida Saat, to share her knowledge on research. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mei Li. Such an insightful, how your journey. I guess this is slightly different, yeah. Another perspective, right? Because most of us are education. Okay, so this is yours is like cultural studies, right? So if you do not have any topic, go for EKA test. Something that might interest you. Okay, so probably you can pick up some of her experience while doing her work. That should give you some guidance. Probably, I'm sure along the way you'll find all these stumbling blocks, and so probably by listening what you have heard just now give you some insight. Yeah. Okay. So when Dr. Husaina approached me early this week, right? Okay. So she asked me whether is it possible that I talk something something on this research. For this research workshop, so she was saying that it's more for the semester 1 or semester 2 of the PhD students. But I can see that some have graduated, some are in the process of collecting data, analyze, and I'm not sure how many of you the one who are online. But anyway, probably those who have gone through the process can share your experiences with us. So that you can with your experience probably inspire them, inspire those who are beginning to start their journey. So before, is this okay, before you start your journey, you have to plan, right? So in research, of course, like what Dr. Mei Li mentioned just now, you must have a research focus on the topics, right? Well, to me, I don't go for topics. It is just a focus first, right? What is there for you to to research on? Okay, this the start area, is it on like I can give like I'm from science education. I'm a science educationist. Yeah. So do I go? How do I make? How do I teach my students? As you know, science is not many likes to do science, right? So how do I make them interested in science, for example? That is just a focus, right? So you must have something that in mind. Okay. Then once you have done that, of course, you have your problem statement that leads to your research aim, your research questions, data collection, analysis, and so forth. So before we go into this, I would like to know your take, or not your take, your experience, because I'm supposed to, giving an interactive lecture or workshop. You cannot have workshops, some are online, this is hybrid kind of thing. But at least do share with us. I have two questions. I'm using Mentimeter. Okay, so I will, put up the Mentimeter here, and then you log in and give your answer. Hold on, eh? Those online and here, just hold on. Okay. Hold on. Okay, those here you can see this, right? Log in.
What's the code? 3077-1392. I'm also online.
Okay. Try this. What is your main stumbling block in identifying your research focus? Okay, those who have done your seminar one, for example, yeah, probably you reflect back. What took you so long to find a research topic? But those who are in that situation, you should know. Okay, only one gap. Only one gap, not because it gap. Only one answer, yeah. I guess the online
They got it.
Huh?
I already got it. I already gave them the code.
Oh, okay, okay. Ya, takut terbuka lain.
Yeah, you can want to know.
How many people online?
57.
57. Okay, we have 57 online and we have here 2, 5, 7, 8, 9, 8 and 9, 7, 66. I should get a nice word cloud here. Probably I need to say this again. When you say stumbling block, in what make you, unable to find your focus, right? Is it, you are fickle, indecisive? When you read something, oh, this is interesting, then you read something, oh, this is interesting, then you keep on jumping and jumping, right? That's very common. Unsure where to start, is it? Okay, come on, those online, please participate. That's the reason why I use this Mentimeter, so that I can involve you. This is open for PhD student, doctorate dia kan. The SV kena marah. Unclear guides from SV. I'm not getting any more answers. The online people say something. Do you manage to go? Get into it? They can, because it's not moving anymore.
Yes, we have answered one of those online.
Okay. That means the biggest problem is the problem statement. But you don't go problem statement before getting your focus, isn't it? So when you say that's your biggest problem, your biggest problem is sorry, what is this? How to go back? Press another. Okay. So we can say that the biggest stumbling block is the problem statement. I guess whoever gave this answer probably saying that they do not know how to write a problem statement, right? That's what I feel. Okay. So that means if you do not know how to write a problem statement, that means you are unsure. You are very blur about your problem, right? So go back to the drawing board. Go and search. Okay, one way is go for EKG probably. See what interests you. But one thing is probably interest is just not enough in our setting, yeah, Dr. Mei, because I think most of them, like some of them are the sponsorship. They are forced to do within a certain area. So something of interest to them, probably they are abide to their sponsors possible. right? And some probably are sent by their institution to focus on certain area. Okay, so sometimes those people who come in with that kind of constraint, you have to abide, right? You have to abide that well, this is something that I have to do, and I took up this that study leave or scholarship, right? So when you say your main problem is problem statement, that means that shows that your research focus is not focused. Okay, go back to the drawing board. Okay, if you know what is your focus, it's easy. Okay, you follow certain steps, like for example, outlined by Creswell, yeah, the 5 steps. Okay, or sometimes I merge some of the steps. So if you have a very clear focus, you know how to go about it. Yeah. Second thing that I can see from this word cloud is the research gap. Again, I would say that if you do not know the research gap, that means you do not know what you're looking at, right? So you are, that means you are looking at literature that is, you are reading literature that is all over. So therefore you cannot categorize them and cannot put things together. And when you cannot put things together, you can't find the gap, right? So you must have what is the main thing that you want to do. Okay. What else stated there? Methodology is not the time yet to do it, right? First thing is get your research focus. I know students coming to me saying that they say that I want to do this research, and saying that I already have this instrument. So they have the instrument already at the back of the head and saying that I want to do this research without going through the arguing out what is the problem. And if you know what is the problem, you should be able to find the gap, right? So that is not a good strategy to plan up your research. Yeah. What else? Where to focus? If you say you don't know where to focus, that means you do not know what you want to do, right? So think hard again. Probably some of the examples given by Dr. Mei Li just now can inspire you. That probably you can look into some. What are the things that is of interest to you? That is you feel that is really something that you need to a problem that you need to solve, right? And but when you want to solve a problem, it's not the world problem, okay, or the nation problem. It's too huge, okay. So something that is manageable, okay. Don't rock the world, You can do that later when you finish your work. Multifaceted, I'm not sure what it means here, but that means it's not focused then. Multifaceted, that means you're looking, are you looking at, certain things from various angles? So probably that will not focus to where you're supposed to do, right? What else here? Not enough literature. You feel, who mentioned this? I guess you feel that you're doing something new, right? But frankly speaking, that is not true, because I know there are students coming to me saying that this is new, I couldn't find any literature on this. Frankly speaking, I don't think so. Like what Mei Li mentioned just now, you must know the keywords. Yeah, to search things, you must know the keywords. Sometimes you do not hit the right keywords, right? So that will, that brings you to another domain or another dimension that is, all over. Okay. Unclear guides from SV. Well, sometimes supervisors are there to guide you, okay? And you don't expect them to tell you what to do because you are a doctoral student. You have gone through undergraduate, you have gone through master's program. By right, when you are at your PhD level, you should, you should have a high self-directed learning, right? You know where to learn. So your supervisor should be guiding you. But if you go there and you go and see your supervisor looking at her or him, hoping to get answer what you're supposed to research on, I don't think that is correct. Okay. Usually, supervisor wants their supervisee to be independent, and they need to do the research of their own interests. That will help the student to grow. If you are being dictated to do what he or your supervisor asks you to do, it will not be an enjoyable journey. Okay, unless you are brought in to be part of his or her research grant, that is something different. Okay. I'm sure sometimes if it's in the States, I know that usually if they go and meet your supervisor, especially the early semesters, I guess. Usually they ask you to read and read. Okay, so that you are well versed with what you want to do. Okay. There's no shortcut. I'm sorry. You have to read a lot. Yeah. When you come back and see your supervisors, say, okay, what you have read? Tell me. Give a synopsis of what you need. What is your critique on this and that? That's how if it's really a PhD. If you are a doctoral student, they will expect that kind of feedback. Yeah. What else is there? Just now, literature. I think nowadays, with the internet and all, I guess literature, finding enough literature is not a problem, so much problem as compared to previously when, people like, the ancient people like us, we gone through a hard time, when we do not have digital resources, right? Digital resources. So if you want, because I remembered, for me, if I want to get more literature, I have to travel. So I have to go to London, to Nottingham. You have to travel to overseas sometimes to get certain materials. Yeah, Mei Li, she went to China because her work is very focused towards a person, right? And it's archived there. So in terms of other literature, because during when I was doing my PhD, there's not much of online journals. There's only hard copy. If you want hard copy, you have to pay the library to get it from overseas. So it just happened that I went for a conference, so I spent more time, going to the library there. So to me, insufficient literature shouldn't be a problem, especially in this digital age. Okay. And so if you have problem, I think now with our library, you can get help from the library. I hope our students here and even the online students coming from the various institutions, I'm sure your library, you are entitled a certain number of papers, right? How many papers are you given free per year? Papers.
campus group and anything that is related.
Okay.
will be requested.
I thought more than that. No. I thought more than that. But anyway, but if you need more, I mean, let's say it's outside of because some we subscribe. I think that's the reason. Because some database we subscribe, right? So you can download it for free, right? Okay. So the one to buy, yeah. Okay, the one that we do not subscribe, that you have to pay, there is a limit, right? Okay. Can't find the issue. Dig harder. Okay, dig harder. There's no way, no shortcut. But you have to think and think. You know, probably go out at night, face the. You look up in the sky. Probably you can find some answers there. Okay. Okay. So can we move on to the next question? There's two questions there. Okay, for this. Okay, especially those who have done it, and probably those who have not getting your idea. Probably, what do you think is the main source of idea that can can contribute towards giving you your research focus? Okay, the code there is 30771392. One answer only. When I say that main source of idea, it doesn't mean it needs to be a place where you get your materials, yeah? Yeah, personal experience, yeah? Okay, I guess the personal experience stands out here, right? Many have written personal experience. So when you say personal experience, anyone here has said personal experience probably? No?
I think it depends on that person and job. Perhaps he or she is the teacher. So probably the research focus would be anything related to their workplace situation, environment, and so on.
Yeah, it's very common, right? Especially, in this faculty where most of our students are teachers. Because, like, for example, some of my students, we just finished our classes last semester, and so I was teaching research method. So she was like, yeah, I want to do this because my students do not, they do not understand social science, So she said, I feel passionate. I want to help my student. Okay, good. But then you must know what is the problem. Are the students not motivated? Are the students, their cognitive level is low? That they need some help for you to assist them in understanding certain things. So you must know. Although the things that that is based on your personal, but you must know what aspect, right? So if let's say low motivation, so you must look into how to motivate them. Right? How to motivate them. Probably a new way of teaching that subject to make it more interesting, for example. Okay, so personal experience is quite common, yeah. But again, like I mentioned, you must know what is the problem. Sometimes to them, oh, that is a problem. Students do not understand. But why do they not understand? Is it too abstract? If it's too abstract, you have to your problem is to make them to assist them in understanding in a more. You have to make the whatever subject, whatever concept that is difficult to make it easier, right? So you can give some suggestions of probably using technology, for example, or now people like to go some advanced technology, use of AI, for example. Okay, but once you use AI, you must know to do some form of programming, right? You cannot do it on your own, so you have to something that is doable within your scope. Okay. Okay, another source of idea is from literature. Yeah, definitely. It means you read and read, right? That will help you in getting ideas. What is the current issues? What is the current trend in your area of study, for example? Yeah, you do not want to replicate what others are doing, and you do not want to do research that is outdated. Right? So because people already found the solution and here you are trying to reinvent the wheel. Okay? The literature will help you in giving you this indicator, right? Hot issues, that is under literature, that means the current trend. Yeah, the current trend. What is the current trend in our but sometimes when I say old issues, if you look in a different angle with new perspective, it can be something new. Yeah. So don't worry about you feel that it's over research, but then probably you bring in something new to the research that will give another perspective. Okay. I'm not sure. Practical teaching. That means. What do you think about this practical teaching? That means something practical, I guess. I'm not too sure. Okay. Own teaching experience. We have discussed that. Novelty, of course. Whatever you do, it needs to be novel. Okay. Because at the end of your viva, they say, what is so novel about your research? Okay. So you must make sure that it brings something. Okay, something in terms of practical, in terms of theory, in terms of methodology, in terms of new knowledge. Okay, so those are novelties. Okay, current issues of trend. Yeah, we have covered that. A local university journal, that's under literature. Past research also under literature. Discussion with SV. Okay, so I guess if you are exhausted, reading, you don't know where to go to your supervisor. I think probably he or she will help you in assisting you to look at some possible topics, okay? But make sure it's of your interest, because you don't want to waste your time doing 3-4 years, and even maybe they mentioned 11 years. Wow. Okay, 11 years doing that research, and if that research is not passionate enough for you, that means you suffer while doing the research. Okay, so make sure that it's something that doable, something is of interest to you, and you enjoy doing it, and don't ever think that the long journey that you have to go. Don't think about it. You go step by step. You cross the bridge as it comes. Okay. What else? Interviews. Well, you can go around, seek people's opinion, but not necessarily others' opinion might be, relevant. But probably you can, ask your seniors, ask your colleagues, That's the reason for PhD student, I advise you to be on campus, especially be within your circle of PhD students so that you can interact with them, speak to them, discuss with them, right? Don't isolate yourself. But Mei Li just mentioned the network is very important. Okay, because frankly speaking, doing a PhD is a lonely journey. I feel this is a very lonely journey. I only know my area of study. My study is different than yours. So I'm an expert in my study, you are expert in your study. So sometimes when you talk, probably the person don't understand what I'm talking about. Okay, and if I say something, you do not understand what I'm talking about. So it's a lonely journey. But anyway, so be in a group of those are doing PhD together. That's the reason why we do. I'm sure other institutions also you have your PhD room. To mingle, and then you motivate each other. Yeah. Then when you see people, some of your fellow friends have gone through the proposal defense, then you will be like, oh, I have to do this also, right? Then when your friends go out and collect data, you also follow suit and so forth. Okay, so be with the people within. Those who are doing. They pursue this study. Don't be in isolation, right? What else? Discussion on experience. Interesting topic. Is it? Interesting novel, print media, age of interest. I think we have covered most of the things here, right? Okay, so these are some of the, this is what you say, you feel that is the source of ideas for your research. Okay. Yaya, can I have back my slides? Okay. Okay, so we have done, so at least I know basically where you are. Okay. Okay, this is based on what I feel. Yeah, I think you have mentioned about literature. Okay, literature. That means literature covers journal articles, conference proceeding, theses, books, and so forth. Right. Then some research some are being suggested by your supervisor, especially those supervisors who has research grants. Because when they have research grant, they need output. One of the output are postgraduate students. Okay, so each postgraduate student will do some part of the big research grant. Okay, if you are under that category, I would say you are lucky. There's no need for you to crack your head to get the research problem. But on the other hand, you miss out that experience. Okay, because frankly speaking, finding a research problem or research focus is a problem. Okay, that's my hardest. When I reflect back, I feel that that's the hardest part of my journey, because when I try to find that research focus, they say, oh yeah, this, and suddenly then I can't sleep at night. I can keep on reflecting what should I research on, what should I research, and I say, oh yeah, this. Then you wake up in the middle of the night saying, so what? So you must keep asking the so what question, when you say, okay, this research, but why do I do this research where I already know the answer? Many students have that problem. Okay, they already know the answer and they say that's their research problem. They say, no, I want to do this because I want to do it. Yeah, you're answering your research. See? So if you already know what is the answer to the research, why bother to do the research? That shows that it is over research and you have read it somewhere that is the solution. Okay. If you are lucky, you can you get to work with your supervisor as to work on a research grant. Okay. But you save a lot of time, definitely. Yeah, because even research grant, it covers sometimes only 2 years the most, right? So you'll be chased by your supervisor because they want the result from you, right? Personal and professional experience, I think we have covered this, right? Then emerges from the research itself. Okay, probably when you were a master student, okay, you have done that research and you want, there are certain things that you need more in depth, probably, you can do that. Or probably while you are teaching, then you have some research, like you do action research or something like that, yeah. So that also you can, make it bigger, in depth. That can be a source of your work too. Okay. Okay, that covers. Probably, these are some of the things, but probably there are some other ideas that that can be the sources of your research focus or research topics, right? Okay, once you already get what is your focus, okay, once you already get your focus, what you need to do is to dig more on it. Okay, let's say now is the time to not to change any more of your ideas. Okay, no more changing because you'll be wasting your time. Okay, time is very limited, especially those on scholarship. Yeah, and you have 3 years. Yeah. So when we say that when you already have your focus, so what you need to do is to find more from literature. Dig as much as you can, and then I would suggest that for me, I don't know whether it works for you, but you can try. But for me, I would go to read. I would read the conference papers, the most recent conference papers. Okay, that will give you the latest study within the focus that you are going in. Okay, because if one research to be published in journals, especially reputable journals, it takes years to be published. By the time it get published, it's already like 3 years old. Okay, so like conference, usually when people present, and then it will be automatically compiled as proceeding. Be it to me, be it if it's just a brief paper or what do you call it, abstract. That is good enough actually to give you an idea what is the current thing within the focus that you want to do. Yeah. So you start with that first. Okay. Once you already identify, like that, let's say for example, bagi contoh lah, you all talagak lah petang-petang. Moimi, what is your area in management? What are you doing?
I'm actually doing financial literacy.
Okay.
Mostly focusing more on the policy aspects.
So what is the policy? Policy. Yeah. That means no policy at the moment.
There is policy during the time that I start the research. It was still contact, especially when they wanted to prepare for the school children, and which at our Ministry of our Education as well, we just wanted to implement the financial literacy part to participate in the PISA participation for the whole wide world. And
You mean PISA though?
yes,
PISA.
because before that we just focusing only on the math, science, and those subjects only. But then other countries such as OECD countries, they already started with PISA and also already included the financial literacy aspect. But in our country, we were just about to start actually during, we were supposed to start 2021, but 2022, during 2020 we were having a nightmare with the COVID situation. And 2019, our ex-Prime Minister financial literacy policy in Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this situation, the financial literacy context in Malaysia is still new. So
that means it's still new lah. Okay, it's still new, especially in Malaysian context.
Yes.
So you want, but what actually, I mean, you are doing it. I mean, the policy for the whole country, or just that?
Specifically, focusing more on the unresearched community people. As per what our governor, Bank Negara Malaysia has proposed, like before for the new banks, for the e-wallet and something like that. We were more focusing on for the whole community, but we are going to be more focused on the unreserved community as well.
Okay.
Because before this, most of our financial technology or financial services that are offered in the market, it just only benefited most of those who are living in the city area, because we were exposed to more technology, more things such as e-wallet and something like that. But how about those people who are actually they're supposed to have to do personal financial literacy management as well, but they are living at outskirts of urban, then they are not being exposed with this thing. So my focus is more on this kind of community, as well as proposed by our governor of Bank Negara Malaysia.
Okay. Who else can share their okay. Buka mas, please. Mas. Okay.
I'm a master student,
Mm-hmm.
so I really like to investigate more about GeoGebra.
GeoGebra.
The mathematics software in mathematics modeling. Because nowadays, when teaching, the problem is the student, the concept is abstract, like you said just now. So how to use modeling means the real life situation, plus with the GeoGebra to investigate what is the effectiveness and what's the, to teach the teacher what kind of feelings about using that software.
Okay.
The gap, I'm still in the literature phase to identify the gap. Is there a gap to identify my research?
Yeah, what has been actually GeoGebra? There is a number of
Is there any still a portion in the research that I can mention?
Yeah. Okay. So GeoGebra is a software, kan?
Yeah, it's
a software. Yeah.
I still want to try to find the portion of the research.
Yeah.
The basic area of mathematical modeling.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Why did I ask this now? I forgot. But, okay, so you start with proceedings. Okay, then only you go to journals. Journals will give you more details. Okay, because in journal usually the methodology is being described in more detail. Yeah. And go for index journal. Yeah, not the one that is what do you call it? Predatory journals or journals that is not being peer reviewed. Okay, so go for high index journal, because it's not because of anything. It's because we know that it's of quality. Because to get published in such journals will go through a rigorous review. Yeah. Okay. Then from journals, probably then only you can read thesis. Yeah. Then one thing reading about thesis, sometimes you say, oh, why these people have very nice idea? Why can't I think of this before? You know, that kind of thing. So to me, when you read thesis, it's just to give an idea how to go about the research, not to plagiarize or to follow through what the other person is doing, right? So it just give you an idea. Okay, these are some of the steps, some of the things that I need to bear in mind, you know. So and be cautious that not all theses available in the library are of good quality, although those are possible, but it ranges from the distinction and the just can do. Okay, so you cannot compare saying that such person, this disease did that, why can't I do that, something like that. Okay, so when you read read the thesis, make sure you read it critically. Okay, not only saying that, okay, this is good, everything is good, just because it's on the shelf in the library. Okay. Then books, usually books you will search, to enhance certain knowledge, because from, all the knowledge created, constructed based on based on research that is published in conference proceedings, journals, and theses, then only you do the book, right? So books are, compiled knowledge that has been created or constructed earlier. So if you want in depth of certain things, then you go to books, and also books will give you some insight of certain things, and then all the theories. So you might want to read some classical books, okay, like theories like Piaget is a very classical. Okay, so you have to, whether you like it or not, you have to go and read the books. Okay. Then once you have searched, read, browsed, reviewed the literature exhaustively. Okay, exhaustively. Within the focus of what you want to do, then you start building your literature map. I hope that you are familiar with the literature map, because that will give you, if you do your literature map, then you can identify your gap, what you want to do. Because from your literature you read a lot, and then based on that you categorize what has been done and see what are not being done. Okay, then what not being done, that will be your gap. Okay, and but again, be cautious, is that finding a gap not necessarily will give you the significance of your study. You must ask yourself the so what question. So a gap is, nobody has done it, but is it significant? Is it something that novel? Okay, so why you are doing that research? Again, you need to ask yourself. Yeah, and then based on that literature map, you can now easily write your research problem or your problem statement. Okay, so you don't start writing your problem statement without all those processes. So if you are very, sure about the focus, what is the real problem, then you can easily write your problem statement. Okay, by following through going through the steps, then you can do it. Okay, any question? You only have passed the online. Any question? They can type, is it?
Yes, they can type. Nothing for now.
Okay, it's almost time, Bun. Okay, probably.
Doctor, one question. How about hypothesis?
Hypothesis, once you have your research problem, then you go to your research aim, and then that will determine your research objectives and your research questions. Once you get your research questions, then only you know whether it's quanti or quali or mixed method or whatever. If you need to have a hypothesis, that is the time to do it. Okay? Okay, those who are not familiar with literature map, this is taken from Creswell's book. This is the literature, how you categorize the things that you have been reading within your focus area, right? Yeah, I don't think I want to do all this. Just a clarification of terminologies. Yeah, that means that when you say research topic, it's a broad subject matter address. Yeah, research topic, a topic. Yeah. Then research problem are general education issue, concern or controversy addressed in a research that narrows the topic. So once you have the topic, that's why I mentioned you have to have some form of topic or focus, then only you narrow down what is it. Okay, based on that, then then only you can identify your problem. Okay, research purpose is your intent or the aims. Okay, and research question is again the very specific ones in how you want to. The research questions are the things that you ask. If you can answer that, that will reflect back to your objectives and your aims. So you must have the loop. Yeah, because once you analyze your data, you should be answering your research question, and when you answer your research question, it should fulfill your research aim or research goal. Okay, then the rest tak payahlah code this one. Okay, I think that's about all. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Rohaida, for the tips and tricks that you have shared with the audience. Surely it will prove useful for everyone in your research journey. Now we open the floor for any Q&A to both speakers. Anyone here has a question? Okay, we have one question from audience online. Is it possible that our title will be changed after we have done our DRP or last YWA? Whichever. Maybe, okay, okay.
To me, that's possible. Yeah. Okay, like I think Mei Li have demonstrated. I mean, even her research question is evolving, right? But hers, I can see you are doing you did qualitative, right? Yeah, qualitative. That's the beauty about it. I'm a qualitative researcher. Okay. But you cannot change so much. But it's I mean, like even like Dr. Mei Li, she demonstrated that when she went into the research, she couldn't know she didn't know what she's getting into or what. It really evolves. Yeah.
How about quantitative?
Quantitative, you have to be a bit rigid. Okay, a bit rigid, because before you go for your proposal defense, you need to validate all your instrument and all. Then that's the reason many quantitative people, by right, they should be doing their proposal defense slightly later as compared to quali, because quali say, okay, I have some focus and I want to go. I mean, sometimes even their theoretical framework is not there yet, but quanti usually is already quite fixed. It's already quite fixed. Okay, you have all if you have hypothesis, go ahead and have your hypothesis and all. So once you go through your proposal defense, then you collect your data based on the instrument you have validated, because you have to validate your instrument before going for your proposal defense, right? So your title will not change much as compared to quali. Quali research is a dynamic, but of course the main idea shouldn't change much, but but the research question might change a bit. Even for my study, I added one new research question at the end of the day, and I threw away one research question. Okay?
Thank you, Prof. All right, since there are no more further questions from those here and those online, let us now move to the end of the workshop, which is the presentation of a token of appreciation and a short note from our Deputy Dean, AP Dr. Husaina Banukayatullah.
Okay, we are at the end, but I think hope this is not the end. So we will have more series of workshops, and we have our honorary professor who is always supporting us. And I hope you have some insights into the research topics and how you deal with it. And I think it is quite interesting how I think both our panelists today has bring in different areas how you can view these research topics and how you can go about it. And I think one of the things that you always have to have in mind is not to set. I think our students are too much having set in mind that I'm going to do a quantitative. So this is my research question. So this is not like you go and do the literature search first and find the gap. But first thing, okay, Dr. Sana, I'm going to do SAM, Smart PLS SAM. So that kind of mindset need to be changed. So I am not going to lecture now today. So I'll make it a sweet ending. So I'll take this opportunity to thank our Honorary Professor, Prof. Rohaida, and also our Dr. Mei Li, who has come in from US and who will be traveling back in 4 days, right? So I sincere and also warm regards from the Dean of the Faculty of Education, Associate Professor Dr. Zawawi Ismail. So, and also thank you to my beloved PhD students who are here physically and also who are online. I think they are from different institutions as well. And I hope that this knowledge sharing will continue. And I wish you all the best in your PhD journey. With that, thank you.